Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast, where we explore the depths of personal growth, transformation, and the power of mindfulness in all aspects of life. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are delving into a topic that is often shrouded in taboo but holds profound wisdom for those willing to explore it: sexual fantasies. Our guest is a certified somatic sexologist, former sex worker, professional dominatrix, and author of the upcoming book, The Spirituality of Smut: The Surprising Wisdom of Sexual Fantasies. With over 30 years of studying the nature of desire, our guest offers a groundbreaking theory on how sexual fantasies are not just arousing thoughts, but powerful stories designed by our minds to unlock deeper intimacy, self discovery, and even spiritual experiences. Meet Artemisia the Vine. Artemisia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for being open-minded enough to hear this topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listeners, before we proceed to the topic, I would also love to share more about my guest with you. Throughout Artemisia's career, she has trained some of the world's leading sexperts and therapists on how to understand and harness the wisdom of sexual fantasies, moving them from the shadows into consensual, embodied experiences that honor our primal nature and deepen our connections. And if you have ever wondered why certain fantasies turn you on, what they mean, or how to integrate them into your relationship in a healthy way, this discussion, this conversation is for you. So join us as we explore how sexual fantasies can be a path to greater self awareness, pleasure, and even spiritual enlightenment with our guest, Artemisia the Vine. Artemisia, welcome to the show once again, and it's an absolute honor having you with us.
Thank you so much. Sexual fantasies are not exactly the first thing on most people's list when they think about pathways to spiritual oneness.
That's true. That's true. But somewhere down in the mind, we always think about it. Not maybe in connection with the spiritual aspect, but we think and we want to talk about it. But yeah, there are a lot of restrictions, a lot of uh, uh, you know. Um, blocks to this aspect, but this needs to be discussed more and more about openly, at least the awareness part. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Artemisia. And to start with, you have developed a groundbreaking theory that sexual fantasies contain deep wisdom. So, can you walk us through how fantasies are more than just arousing thoughts and what they reveal about our deeper desires?
Absolutely. First of all, I should say what a sexual fantasy is, because
Mhm.
not everybody's actually sure about that. There's a little bit of confusion. A sexual fantasy is the mental, the psychological part of what makes us turned on, what gives us sexual arousal.
Mhm.
So sometimes that can be an entire porn star style scene running across the movie screen of your mind.
Mhm.
Sometimes it can be just remembering what your partner did last week, because that was a sexy thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes, sometimes it can be imagining the ideal date this weekend.
Yeah.
It is it is the meaning making story in the background of your mind all the way through sex, even if you think that you are just focused on your sensations.
I agree with you.
Right? So sometimes I've encountered people who will try and teach you how to have conscious sex, and they will talk about embodiment and embodied sex. And they say, okay, in order to make sex spiritual, because they're trying to give themselves permission to have this natural, normal part of ourselves. They're like, in order to make sex accessible, something that I'm allowed to have, I'm going to cut off that mental part because it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I think embodiment means noticing my body sensations and my smells and, my skin coming alive from sensations and tastes and sights. And I'm going to be excited about being very present and mindful with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to just watch those sexy fantasies come up and let them go by like a cloud on the sky and bring my attention fully back to the present with my partner. And that should be enough. That should be enough to make me satisfied. And that's what's going to take me into spiritual sex experiences. And it can, don't get me wrong, it absolutely can. If you want to follow that path, it will. You can get into some beautiful ecstatic experiences.
Yeah.
But what this dialogue doesn't understand is that they've just cut off their own internal map that actually had its own wisdom and its genius, its own way of reconciling the paradox of desire within us so that we could let go of our ego and have an ego dissolution experience and lose ourselves to connect with somebody else, and sometimes even more than that, feel connected with everything that is a oneness experience.
Wow. Well, that's really a much levels deeper into this entire idea, because there's so many misconceptions surrounding the idea of sexual fantasies. So, moving from fantasy to reality, many people feel conflicted or even ashamed about their fantasies. Of course, in my culture, we don't even are we don't even dare to mention about these concepts or let about openly discussing with our friends or our partner also. So, how can we mindfully explore and embody our fantasies in real life while also maintaining healthy boundaries?
Isn't that the golden question? Don't we all want the answer to that? And I do believe that I can help people. I've been helping people do that for a long time now. But let's take a step back. I'd really love to know, what is the common idea, do you think, you said you talked about your culture, and I'm from Australia in Melbourne. So can you tell me a little bit about what you think some of your culture audience would be thinking about sexual fantasies, what they're for? Why wouldn't they talk about them?
That would be really controversial, but it's the truth. Right from childhood, then moving on to teens, because in our culture, typically, religious or spiritual aspect is given more importance, and being respectful and little bit of restricted in family with our parents or maybe in school. Of course, sex education is not given much of an importance apart from the biological aspect of just the organs. But in terms of understanding the entire idea around sex and how it can help cultivate a healthy relationship with your partner, I think most of the education comes from just normal discovery discussions. Sometimes one of my friend will suddenly come to me and talk about it, or maybe sometimes in movies, and most of it from the porn movies, of course. That's
Right.
the only thing I can mention to you. And that's what I believe most of my people of my generation will agree with. But yeah, now gradually the Gen Zs or Gen Zs, they are trying to openly discuss it, concepts around sexual fantasies, but
Mm.
it will take a long time.
Mm. It's amazing how much a culture can change, though. I think about just what my peers thought 10 years ago, and we've all changed our minds radically. So it's incredible how much we can change.
Yeah, that's true.
um, okay, so sexual fantasies are stories of desire, aren't
Mm-hmm.
they? And the
Mm-hmm.
way that you just described why people are ashamed to talk about them
Mm-hmm.
is the very reason we have them.
Mm-hmm. That's irony.
Okay, because what is desire? Like, desire is wanting.
Correct.
Desire is this part of us that actually is always on our side. It wants the best for us. So, it doesn't understand outside world consequences, but it wants the best for us. Like if it suddenly wants to make you feel powerful, that's because you weren't feeling powerful. You were feeling vulnerable and it wanted to protect you. There's always something that it wants to give you,
True.
even if it doesn't necessarily understand how to actually enact that in safe ways. But actually, if its wisdom is brilliant when we really look at it, the reason that we want that, red sports car when we hit our midlife crisis
Yeah.
is not necessarily because of the actual red sports car. It's how we think we will feel, how other people will perceive us, what we will get to experience if we had it that we don't currently have. And that might be, free and young and alive and desired and connected to the mystery again. It could be all sorts of things that are not necessarily bad things to want for us. But this part of us that has this wisdom, actually, it knows incredible things. It knows how to take us exactly home to wholeness, desire does. But
Mm-hmm.
because it's one organ of the psyche and it lives in our unconscious and it doesn't realize the outside world exists, it doesn't realize gravity exists, doesn't realize diabetes exists,
Yeah.
doesn't realize it'll just make you want to eat all of the cakes.
Right.
It doesn't understand consent because it just lives in your unconscious and speaks this symbolic language all the time. It goes, oh, I see what you're missing to be whole. Here's a symbolic thing that will bring you into wholeness. It's constantly sending these little messages that are actually very well intentioned. And when you look at them closely, they're pretty wise. You follow them all the way to the end. You
Mm-hmm.
follow, even going into that midlife crisis car, and yeah, you just wanted to have, feel desired again. So other people would want to have sex with you, or
Yeah.
you'd wanted to feel powerful and free, and alive again, and then follow that further. What happens when you get to feel that? What do you get to feel then? Well, I'm wanted, and I've got all of I've got all of the sex and the love that I want now, and
Exactly.
I've got the freedom to go wherever I want as fast as I want, and I feel really powerful, and I feel, in control of my own life. Now I'm starting to feel an exhilaration. Now I'm starting to feel my heart expanding. Now I'm starting to feel my defenses melting down. Now I'm starting to feel, wow, how amazing is life? I remember now. Oh, I'm now driving with the top down in the car, right down by the beach, and I can see the horizon forever, and the sun is setting, and the stars are starting to come out, and I'm like, wow, that's right. Being alive is amazing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and take it even further. What does that get you to feel? It's like, wow, that moment of awe and wonder of how small I am compared to how big the sky is.
Exactly.
And that moment of connecting with that. Sometimes if you just keep following that, you'll drop into this moment of, wow, I'm so small compared to that night sky. I'm so little, I'm insignificant. Oh my goodness, I'm nothing. And that means when you lose yourself like that, I'm nothing. I lose myself, lose your ego. That's when you remember that you're everything. And this following this path takes you somewhere. So
Right.
desire knows the way home to that feeling when we know how to hear it and follow it. But how can we follow our own desire without harming ourselves or our lover or the fabric of society? Right? So, I mean, you just talked about it then. Like you're saying you can't talk about your sexual fantasies because the rest of the world won't understand and they might judge.
That's
And now you have to choose between what is good for you, connecting with your own inner wisdom, or being part of the tribe, which you need to survive, to feel whole. You need to connect with them. Now you've got a paradox. Which one do you choose? It's not, it's like, I don't know how to choose between these things. This is an impossible choice. I need both. They're both right. I need, how can I do that? Like, and you go, okay, I want to follow my desire in the bedroom tonight on date night. But my partner likes a different style of doing things. Should I be focusing on what they like or should I be focusing on what I like? Right? What should I be doing? How do I do that? You know, it's the sexual equivalent of, you know, what should we have for dinner? Your favorite or mine? Like, should I prioritize myself or should I prioritize you? What makes me a good person? Prioritizing myself or prioritizing you? If I prioritize myself, I will get my needs met, and I need my needs met. And also, if I prioritize you, I'm a good person and you will get your needs met.
Yep.
Right? So it's a paradox. What are we going to do? Which one are we going to choose? How are we going to work this thing out?
Think about.
What a sexual fantasy is the exact story of those paradoxes playing out as characters in our heads.
Oh.
Right? Those exact paradox conflicts play out. That's what's so sexy about naughtiness or tabooness or this friction between do they want me or not? I don't know. Like this, oh no, maybe let's do this naughty thing in the cubby house and nobody, you know, maybe we'll get caught, almost get caught. The fantasy might be that.
Yeah.
And that's playing out that conflict between self and the community right there. Like it's playing this out. It's playing out this inherent paradox to desire, the desire paradox. And it doesn't leave you hanging though. It plays with this paradox and then it resolves it for you so that you can let go. It brings in exactly what you fear will happen if you follow your own desire unbridled. How do I believe that will harm myself? How do I believe that will harm my lover? How do I believe that will harm the fabric of society? It turns that into a story with characters living it out and then somehow flips it on its head. So the exact opposite end result happens. You actually get to connect. Your ego gets to dissolve. You get to just let go. You get to, you know, desire is this urge to merge. You get to just lose yourself in the moment with somebody else. And sometimes even, you know, feel that wonderful sexual equivalent of becoming one with the night starry sky, like I just talked about before.
Absolutely. Wow.
Is that making sense? Please ask questions about anything that doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And this is something which I never thought about. Never. The paradox, you know, it's just like I went through with it, or maybe I'm going through with it in my mind. I'm just thinking about it and feeling those, you know, feelings running through my entire body. So this is really something new to think about and explore and understand the exact meaning of sexual fantasy.
It's a brand new theory. There's no one in the world talking about this, but you and me right now.
That's revolutionary.
Yeah. So this came from my lived experience as a sex worker and as a professional dominatrix, as well as, you know, all of my other sex education and contemplation about what on earth this sex business is over the last 30 years. Because it seems quite ridiculous, isn't it? Why on earth would somebody want to have all of those things that we see on on the porn sites, or we hear about in erotica. Like, it seems pretty silly. And the kinds of stories that actually would get us hot under the collar, if you talk about them openly, they sound ridiculous. They're not logical stories.
Yeah, that's true.
Why would you want to do that? That's so silly. But but when you think of them as, oh no, it's just your psychological processes being turned into characters and then processed in such a way that allows you to temporarily get past the inherent paradox of sex, you now realize there's nothing broken with you. There was never anything broken with you. This is healthy. This is a genius part of you that is making sure that no matter what is in the way, you are going to be able to access your birthright to this incredible, extraordinary moment of just losing yourself into connection and intimacy and pleasure. And I really did experience over and over and over again, once I understood how to listen to my clients' sexual fantasies when I was a sex worker and a professional dominatrix. And I started to bring to life, and this is key, this is a really important part, bring to life the underlying narrative, the psychological mechanisms within the story. I didn't try and live them out as they were in my mind's eye, because fantasies aren't instructions of how to live things literally. They're telling us about an internal process. So when I started to create consensual play experiences where I was fully present in my body and they were too, but we were in play state together, creating the same psychological effects in our play, that's when complete strangers I just met 2 hours ago, and I would end up in these extraordinary oneness states where we felt like, what just happened? We just became one with the universe. What just happened? So this is how I believe it, because I tested it out a few thousand times.
Wow. Wow. So how does understanding the structure or symbolism of these stories help us make sense of what turns us on?
Well, normally we'd feel pretty ashamed. I don't know how much to say, because I'm not sure about your audience, about whether or not I can use actual examples of fantasies. Can you give me some guidelines on what my limits are there?
I can absolutely be free. Be free here.
Okay. So maybe let's say somebody feels really embarrassed because they want to sexually submit to somebody. And actually in real life, they want to be powerful. They don't want to submit at all. They want to be respected by their partner. They want to be respected by their community. They want to be taken seriously, and they want their own individual freedoms. But sexual fantasies of losing all of those freedoms in being told what to do is very exciting. And they're going, well, how am I going to make sense of that, though? I'm a feminist. I don't want to be told to be on my knees and service somebody else. Or I'm whatever, your identity is. I'm this. I can't lose face and do that. That's totally against what my ego wants for me.
That's right.
And there's a reason why it's going against what your ego wants for you, because it's basically a little love letter from desire to your ego. It's basically saying, oh, ego, darling, you're afraid to be vulnerable, aren't you, sweetheart? You're afraid you're going to lose face. You're afraid that, that if you risk your heart first, they'll crush it, or they'll take advantage of it, or it feels as though they'll have power over you if you're the one vulnerable enough to care first. If you're the one vulnerable enough to want first, it feels like you'll just lose yourself. And ego, being, a good little defender of self, says, oh, no, we don't do anything vulnerable. Goodness, no. We're against that game. Anything vulnerable is terrifying. So, but desire is whispering in its ear, going, "Oh, so that's what you're afraid of." Okay, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story that includes that fear, because you can't transform that fear if you don't include that fear. Let's tell a story where you do have to submit and get on your knees and be the slave, the sex slave, and you're being told what to do. And somehow it's going to be okay. You know how the part of the fear was that that would mean that you would actually get annihilated, that your needs wouldn't be met, that you would just be mocked. We include all of that, except that turns out that in this sexual fantasy, that dominant is actually meeting all of your needs.
Correct. That's correct.
They've made you the center of attention. They've actually made it out in this fantasy that dominant is completely satisfied by servicing your needs and pretending that they're theirs, or at least coming across like they're theirs. So there's the antidote. So it's the poison, and the antidote creates the alchemical transformation. And that is enough. That makes sense to our ego. The ego goes, "Oh, I am the center. Oh, okay. I can let go." And in that moment, our logical mind is like, "What are you doing?"
Exactly. It's like
That's right. That's right. But so the mindfulness comes in where I had to, well, for a start, I had to be very mindful to notice what was going on in my own psyche and my clients' psyches while we were doing all of these things in order to work out, hear all of the different voices in my psyche talking and interacting with each other so that I could work out what was happening. But second, once you understand how it works, like I sat them down on my red velvet couch and we had cups of tea and I'd asked them all about their sexual fantasies. And once I heard the narrative underneath, I asked myself the question, in what way are they afraid if they follow, they need to follow their desire, they're not going to let go and become one with the universe. They're not going to even just let go and enjoy themselves and have a nice time. They have to be able to follow their own desire. In what way is their own mind afraid that if they follow their own desire, they will harm themselves, harm their partner, or harm the fabric of society? Okay, how has that symbolically come through in the story? And how did their mind, their own desire, resolve that? Where's the poison? Where's the antidote? Okay, how can I bring that symbolic play consensually to life and be deeply embodied and present while I do that with them?
That's thoughtful. That's thoughtful. And you have what's some of the wildest fantasies you have come across, and what kind of it symbolized for you? What did you deduce from them?
Okay, let's give an example of a few different kinds of fantasies so that people know that their fantasies are normal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really, really normal to have fantasies of cheating, even when you don't want to cheat in real life.
Yeah.
It's really, really normal to want to have group sex or threesomes when you don't actually want to do that in real life.
Yeah, that is also.
There is fantasies of same-sex encounters, even when you don't want to do that in real life. There's fantasies of domination and submission, either being the dominant one lovingly, or even a bit like sadistically, a bit mean, or there's being a submissive and obeying to somebody who is either being mean and making you do it, or being really lovely and making you do it. But there's submissiveness. That is a huge and very common desire. And that can take so many different forms. It doesn't have to be desiring to be a sex slave. It could be desiring to actually become an adult baby. Right? You can and wear a nappy and suck a dummy. And in reality, And you might want to symbolically live that out. And anyone who's got that fantasy right out there right now, I want to tell you that that's actually really normal. But people are not talking about this, right? It doesn't mean you want to actually be a baby, but what's the benefit of being a baby? What do you get to tell me what you feel like if you get to be a baby?
Center of attention, love, adored, getting adored, getting all kinds of, love, care, everything. You just, have everyone running around for you. So
That's
it's just
right.
kind of that feeling, that pampering a baby needs.
That's right. You get all of your desires met, and you don't have to caretake anybody else.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you don't have to feel any guilt for it because you just are worthy of having your desires met.
Exactly.
And yet, that paradox we were just talking about before about, who should I be focusing on, your pleasure or mine? This
Mhm.
fantasy lets you go, well, I don't have to do anything. I'm a baby. I'm allowed to just receive.
Yeah.
I can now just receive what I need to receive until I let go. And then you can completely let go if you follow the little details of the narrative and if you know how to follow it all the way to the end. So again, I want to really reiterate, it's not about necessarily living your fantasies out as they are in your mind's eye. Just like you don't necessarily actually have to buy that red sports car in order to have those feelings, right?
Yeah.
It's about actually following the wisdom of those feelings. What would that give me? How is it helping me access this part of myself? How is this part of myself beneficial to me and everybody that's connected to me? This is actually pretty wholesome when you look at it that way.
Yeah. Lovely. Lovely. So,
Yeah.
you in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that sexual fantasies can lead to expanded states of consciousness and spiritual experiences. So, how do you see the connection between erotic fantasy, ego dissolution, and spiritual oneness, as you mentioned with the paradox?
Yeah, this is the other paradox. Nice one. Thank you for bringing me around to that. So the three main paradoxes that sexual fantasies resolve are how you would think that you would harm yourself or your partner or the fabric of society if you followed your own desire without any sort of reining it in.
Mm-hmm.
So egos, the whole job of an ego is to give you a sense of self and defend your sense of self.
Yeah.
That's its whole job. It's really concerned with things like your self-worth, your self-identity, and your social status.
Mm-hmm.
And we need egos actually in order to operate in the world. It's a good idea to have a healthy ego and a robust one, but we do actually need one in order to be able to, know that we are a self that's separate from each other. But there's so many things you can't do when it's there. It's there for some. It's a limited organ of the psyche. It's got its own genius, but it's got its limitations and its blind spots. And if you're focused on being a self and defending yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot connect with anyone else, let alone be one with the universe.
True.
Because you're inside a castle wall with these guards of self-worth, self-identity, and social status standing there saying, no, I'm not letting you outside the castle wall. You're safe in here. I'm not letting you out. You stay in there. Nobody else is coming in either. How can you connect? It's all about I.
Excellent.
But if you want to have great sex, you have to lose yourself. You have to lose your I and move from I to we. You have to let those guards down. And if you want to move from I to we and even beyond into connecting with all that is, you're going to have to let those guards down and walk down that drawbridge and out into the field. You're going to have to temporarily convince those ego guards to stand down. And the way that is done is those little love letters from desire. desires whispering in those guards' ears, saying, these 3 guards are standing on the drawbridge, not letting you out. No way, you can't ask that person on a date. What if they reject you? No, you stay there. You stay here. Don't you dare take a risk and be vulnerable. Vulnerability means that they could have power over you. You can't do that. But desire's going, oh, but come on. I'm going to make them really magnetically attractive. Even though you're pretending not to look at them, your entire attention is on them, really, isn't it, right now? And it's drawing, and then it might create a little fantasy that makes it okay. It overcomes whatever your ego was afraid of for you to go over and talk to that person and ask them on a date. In that fantasy, I mean, ridiculous things can happen. I mean, I've had ridiculous daydream fantasies, not sexual ones, in this instance, but it mirrors the same process where I'm just sitting there going, well, what if a robber came in then? You know, I'm in a cafe and I want to ask out the barista who's making the coffee. And they're so wonderful and I'm so drawn to them, but my ego's saying, no way, you can't go over there. That's way too embarrassing and too vulnerable. And just going, yeah, go on, ask them. Look how cute they are. Look how cute they are. And, and then my fantasy has said, okay, a robber's come in. And the robber's going to take all of the money and I get to go over there and become the hero. And I save them from the robber. Yes. Yeah. And now they're like so grateful. They're looking at me with big doe eyes and they're like, oh, wow, you're so amazing. Here's my number.
That's why.
And of course they sound ridiculous, but they're just our own processes turned into characters. And sexual fantasies are doing exactly the same thing. They're like, okay, the fantasy is that, like, maybe you're somebody who's like, oh no, I can't receive oral sex and pleasure for very long because, you know, what if I take up too much space? What if they're bored? What if they're just doing it out of obligation? What if they don't want to be here? I think I've been too selfish now. I have to give back to you. My self-identity is a good person who cares for everybody else. I can't access my desire. So the sexual fantasy might be, okay, so they tie you up and in inverted commas, force, because no one actually wants to be forced in real life, by the way. This can only happen as a game, a consensual game, right? But in the fantasy, you're tied up and in inverted commas, forced to receive all of that pleasure that you really wanted to receive. And you can't be held, your self-identity as a good person is safe because you can't give back. It's not your fault.
True.
You're forced to just receive as much pleasure as possible until you let go. And then if that's just one little instance, if I follow the right little thing, so I can enact consensual play with someone that actually convinces all 3 ego guards to stand down, which most people have never had sex in real life or maybe stumbled across it a few times and don't know how to get back to it. But when you know how to hear this and you get to have all 3 ego guards stand down, that's when even a complete stranger who I just met 2 hours ago walked through the door can sit there going, whoa, I was just one with the universe with you. What just happened?
Yeah.
What just happened?
Lovely.
So there's some things to think about, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We are going deeper and deeper into this conversation, and I'm absolutely loving the energy here, Artemisia. And so another important, or crucial aspect also is consent. It's crucial in any exploration of sexual fantasies or even bringing into reality, maybe with your partners. So how can individuals and couples navigate the boundaries of fantasy exploration while ensuring respect and mutual understanding?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I teach, as I said before, I teach some of the world's leading experts who already teach consent to people, so they already understand this. But it is a really important part of the process to learn. And we don't have the skills to do it. We're not the skills to be able to navigate the complexity of our own desire consensually is not downloaded when we're born. We do have to learn this.
Yes.
So seeking out people who are teaching consent, that's huge. That's absolutely deep work, and it's so important. It's so liberating to learn practical skills of how do I actually own my own desire and create an experience where I can consensually experience it through play, right? So that's something that's a little bit too in depth to teach just in a podcast, but I do suggest looking up consent processes, because there's some brilliant things online to do that. And remembering that, I mean, how amazing would it be if people really understood what sexual fantasies were rather than didn't talk about, kept it all suppressed until desire got so sick of being ignored that it grabbed the steering wheel of your mind and you did something that you regret, and now you have the consequence hangover later. What if you had a way of understanding this, recognizing, being mindful of what your desires are, and creating a consensual container around where you can create the same effect? You're no longer going to actually try and cheat to get that need met. You're no longer actually going to try and, grope in the elevator where you might impact on somebody else who doesn't consent to have an impacting on. Like it's going to also stop a whole lot of non-consensual sexual assault if people had a way to understand what was going on inside of their own mind and have a healthy relationship with it.
Absolutely. That's very, very crucial to be, to to spread the awareness, as well as, make ourselves aware about this concept of consent. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this. And for those in relationships, whether couples or married couples, how can they bring their fantasies into bedroom in a way that deepens trust, connection, and pleasure for both the partners?
Yeah, it's a learnt skill again. This is, again, not something that you should automatically know how to do. And yet we put so much pressure on each other to just automatically know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
This is seek out education. And one of the things that you can do just to get the conversation started with each other in a way that's quite safe, because it can feel really scary to actually confess your fantasies, even to your married partner of 30 years. It can feel really scary. So to just begin starting to understand each other's unconscious narratives that have been running in the background of the moment of your desire and your sexy times. There's a little exercise I have on my website, which is free, called the Celeb Swoon Technique. And it takes you through this little process that will, this is how you begin. This is how you start to become aware of your own minds and start to have the conversation. And it's lining up, like you can just do a Google search and find lots of images of the same celebrity that you find attractive. Or if you don't know, you don't find any celebrities attractive, I'm sure you find there's somebody in your life that's attractive. You can find several pictures of them. And then you look at these pictures, and even though they've got the same body and the same face in each of them, you will be more attracted to some pictures than others.
Yeah.
Why? And this Celeb Swoon technique helps you become, ask the right questions to yourself and your partner to become aware of what is the story that's going on here. I just thought, I didn't realize there was a story. I thought I was just looking at a cute person who, had nice abs. Thank you very much. They go to the gym. That's very nice. But I didn't really realize. And yet they're more attractive in this picture and that one. Why? And what's the story? And how do I make sense of this? And, oh, it meets that psychological need in me. Oh, I thought it was because they had, really big breasts and blonde hair. It wasn't actually that, even though they've got the same body in those other picture, and I'm not as attracted. Exactly. What's going on? It wasn't actually their body that satisfies me. It was how the story played out that satisfied me. Oh, how can we bring that to life together in the bedroom? So you can go and do that little freebie course at myfantasyis.com.
Lovely, lovely. That's a great technique.
Yeah.
Okay. So, your upcoming book, which is titled The Spirituality of Smut, can you share how you see smut as a spiritual path and how it can lead to both sexual and spiritual fulfillment?
Yes. So the word smut, I'm using it here because in sort of like a tongue-in-cheek way,
Mm-hmm.
because as a sex worker, I was living out all of these different things that people would consider taboo. They would consider me being a sex worker to be the worst thing a woman could possibly be. They would consider what I was doing with my clients, even though it was actually really consensual and playful and respectful. they would think that that is smut. They think of porn as smut, and there's a lot of judgment around it. There's this whole, again, this. It's basically a word that describes society, the collective again. It's disapproval of our personal desires, our own personal psychological processes in order to become aroused. And so there's this conflict in there, right? There's this constant paradox, this conflict between what's good for the individual versus what's good for the collective. Which plays out in everything all the time. I mean, if we just followed our own desire, we'd never follow any of the rules of that society, and the society would collapse. But if we prioritize this, the collective well-being, I think every single culture has well, every culture I've heard of, let's qualify that, has some sort of morality tale that says you're a good person if you sacrifice yourself for the greater good. Right. You should sacrifice yourself. You shouldn't follow your own desires.
Yeah,
You should suppress your own desires because that's how we're going to survive as a group. Right.
exactly. Exactly.
Right. So um, the word smut, is really all about that. It's about that conflict that's there, and it's saying actually we've got to find these ways. Once we pull apart these sexual fantasies, we hear the story that actually resolves this paradox for us. And not only does it resolve it for us, but the friction between the two parts is what makes us sexually excited. And it is what changes our state of consciousness that gets us aroused. Being turned on is an altered state of consciousness. You think differently, you feel differently, your logic is different, your body responds differently, all sorts of things. It's an altered state of consciousness. And so this is a story that this smut helps you change states of consciousness. And when you know how, you can follow it to its fullest potential, which is moving from I to we to all, the oneness. Following this story, but it is actually most people try and take away the smut in order to get there. They try and sanitize it, but actually, what I'm saying is, this is the doorway in. This is your inner wisdom. This is your inbuilt compass and map, showing you how to change your state of consciousness and go home to wholeness. We need to include it, respect it, and find consensual ways to engage it.
Absolutely. Great, great, Artemisia. And before we wrap up this lovely, beautiful conversation, if our listeners want to get in touch with you um, and explore about your work, your book, as well as the entire concept of sexual fantasies in a better way, how they can do that.
Yes. The best way to keep in contact with me is to get on my mailing list, which you can do by doing that celebrity swoon exercise. That will get you on there. Or you can just go straight to my website, which is my name, artemisiadevine.com. And that's the best way because anything with this sexuality stuff is suppressed on all social media. And I'm very generous in sharing a whole lot of information about things on my mailing list because you've consented. See, you've actively had to consent to be on there. So now you know that I can give you sex education very openly there. So that's that's one way to get some information. And then sometimes I'm offering monthly seminars that go into a different aspect of the divinery method, which is my way of dealing with these things, understanding these things. And the book itself is going to come out, hopefully, if everything goes well, touch wood, on April 2025. And that's also going to have an awful lot of information and stories. So much fun. I mean, we can't go into this topic without having some funny stories now, can we?
Lovely, lovely. Great. So, Artemisia, thank you so much for joining us on the Mindful Living podcast today as we ventured into the rich and often misunderstood world of sexual fantasies and your incredible insights, the studies you have done, the observations into how these fantasies, far from being more taboos, can serve as a powerful tool for self discovery, deeper intimacy, and even spiritual awakening. It's truly, truly inspiring for all of us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And listeners, if today's episode has sparked your curiosity or provided new perspectives on your own journey with desire, we encourage you to explore further. Definitely talk about it, learn about it. And of course, you can refer to the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform to check out Artemisia's upcoming book, The Spirituality of Smut, and also connect with her for deeper dive into surprising wisdom of sexual fantasies and how to transform them into profound real life experiences. And as always, I extend my thank you to for being part of this mindful community. And if you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may benefit from these insights. Until next time, keep living mindfully. And remember, self awareness and pleasure go hand in hand on the path to a deeper, more fulfilling life. This is your host, Sana, signing off.